Coming to the fourth stanza of this poem, it reads, to have no son, no wife, no house or land still seemed quite natural. Unhindered moon with this idea of having no son, no wife, no property. Seemed quite natural. Seemed quite natural. This word, the choice of words seemed is important. It's not natural, but it seemed quite natural. Now remember, this is autobiographical in this poem. As I said earlier, Larkin was not married. He had no sons. Now since he had no sons, so he would have no patronage. He might not be inheriting too many things. So he has actually nothing with him. But to him it seems natural. But to Dean it is not natural. To other people it is not natural. But to him it is natural. So he perhaps says that these things were there in past also. So like the moon is unhindered, this tradition is also unhindered, unchanged, and perhaps better. So people may not say that, Larkin, what have you done? You have worked unnaturally, you have been unnatural by not owning a son, a wife, property, and other things. But they still seem quite natural. Only a numbness registered the shock of finding out how much had gone of life. But there is something which shocked me. These are not the things which concern me, that I don't have a child, I don't have wife, I don't have family. But this does not concern me. Something else concerns me. How this life has passed. How I have lost those college days. How I have reached here. How much of my life have I spent? That shocks me. That troubles me. That concerns me. Now this is here where, Philip Larkin becomes slightly serious about his life. He further says, how widely from the others, Dockery, now only 19, he must have taken stock of what he wanted. And he is again reminded of Dockery, how widely from others. His life has also passed, the life of the speaker, of Philip Larkin, without having anything. He has no son, he has no wife, he has no family. But look at the Dockery. He again thinks about Dockery. At 19 he was smart enough perhaps, or fool enough, traditional, conventional, whatever he was, but perhaps he knew what he wanted in life. What he wanted in life? A son, a wife, a family, perhaps. And being capable of ... Very important. He thinks he was capable of. What was he capable of? He was capable of deciding. He was capable of knowing what he needs. Was Philip Larkin not capable of? This is something that Philip Larkin doesn't want to tell you. So Philip Larkin stops there. Now you can make it out. Philip Larkin thinks that Dockery was smart enough to think at 19, to decide at 19 that he needs a son and a wife and a family. Juxtaposing to himself. But then he realizes that I was not fool not to get married. I was not fool not to have a son. So he drops the argument there with ... and says, no, that's not the difference. That's not the difference. I am not a fool. It's not that I lacked the ability to make right decisions and Dockery had the ability to make right decisions. No, that's not the difference. But the difference lies somewhere else. Where? Rather, how convinced he was he should be added to. A mark of exclamation, and we are into stanza 5th. Again, there is a run-on line. This is not the difference that he was smart enough to make right decisions, but he was convinced that he must be added to. What? To what should be he added? He must be added to the people who follow tradition. He must be added to the people who follow customs, conventions. Philip Larkin does not like to be in the same line, but Dockery wanted. So he was convinced. Now look, this convincing is very important here. This word convinced is very important. He was convinced to follow the tradition and the conventions. He must have been a fool. This is what Philip Larkin is indicating here, implying. He was convinced to follow an outdated tradition, an outdated convention. That is why there is this mark of exclamation. He was not smart. Somehow he was convinced. And that led him to get married, to have a son. Why did he think adding meant increase? Adding to the population meant increase. Now, how did he believe that if we add, to the population, that means we are increasing the humanity on earth? How? That is something I cannot understand, says Philip Larkin, says the speaker. The people think that if we procreate, reproduce 4 children after getting married, we think we have added 4 human beings. How do people think that? It's not the truth. And here, Philip Larkin is very much right. Just reproducing is not adding to humanity. But adding human beings to humanity is more important. Rather, adding just men and women, that is what I believe we have led to. We have added a lot of men and women to the population, which we are failing now to control. We have failed to produce rather human beings. So Philip Larkin says he was of the same thought and believe if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 children, that means I'm adding to the humanity. This is not increase. To me, it was dilution. You are diluting the humanity. You are not enhancing the humanity. But he somehow believed this. Now, what Philip Larkin is doing here, he is making his own case of not getting married and not having sons more stronger as compared to Dockery having a family, having a son. Where do these innate assumptions come from? Innate assumptions. The assumptions that people believe we must add to the population. We must have more children, and that means increase. From where do they get these ideas? Not from what we think truest or most want to do. I don't believe that these assumptions come from God, truest, come from real sources, come from the best knowledge, but perhaps these assumptions come from ignorance. Those wrap tight shut like doors means those who do not want to change. Those who do not want to adapt to the new tradition and new culture, but those who cling to the old conventions and traditions and are very much convinced to be the part of that particular tradition. They are more a style our lives bring with them. Habit for a while. Now these conventions, these traditions, he says, they are much like our habits, which, if we intend, we can change. They come with us for a while and then they leave. Now here he is again saying that if we intend to overcome the, wrong traditions from our society, that will not be a difficult task. Suddenly, they harden into all we have got and how we have got. What hardens? These traditions, these conventions, they become part of our life, part of us. And then we even do not realize how we have reached there, how we have got them. We just get convinced, we just go with the flow, move with the flow, as Dockery has done. It's very difficult to change the path, to change the way, to change the route. Philip Larkin did, but Dockery didn't. So here, Larkin is implying that Larkin is more smart than Dockery. Now we come to the final stanza of this poem. They rear like sand clouds, thick and close, embodying for Dockery a son, for me nothing. They rear. Who? The traditions, the customs. Perhaps it's a reference to them. How are they? They are like thick clouds, embodying for Dockery a son. They come up with a son for the Dockery, and for me nothing. And then people start questioning me. Dockery was a junior to you. Yes, his son is here now. What do you have got? Now suddenly I feel, now if I put myself in this tradition, I feel that I have done nothing in my life. And people will question me. What have you contributed? You didn't contribute even with a son, because these people believe that country adding means increase, which I do not understand. But this is how it is. They rear there. You cannot break them that easily. You cannot overcome them that easily. You have to be part of it. Otherwise, people will say that you have nothing and Dockery has a son. And you have to live with this shame. You will have no explanation to it, but a simple nod, as he did when Dean asked. This is how he presents to you that how difficult it is to get away from conventions and conventions. Nothing with all a son's harsh patronage, though I have got nothing, but there is nothing that I would have got, after all, even if I would have married, but a harsh patronage of son. There would have been a son who would have been related to me, and even that patronage would have been harsh. Life is first boredom, then fear. This is the most philosophical line in this poem. Life is first boredom. What is life? It's not interesting. It's boring. And then fear. As you grow old, you fear. You become more fearful. Why does this fear come here? Because as we age, we become more fearful, because we do not have that energy left, that enthusiasm left. So we become more dependent on others. So life becomes more fearful as it grows. So that is a very philosophical line which tells you in brief, in short, about life. But what is important in this philosophy is that life at least is not interesting. It begins as boring and ends as fearful. Whether or not we use it, it goes. Now whether we use this life or not, it goes. Life moves on. Now use it would be again in the same fashion, you will have to understand this, use it in conventional and in non-conventional manner, in modern and in post-modern manner. For example, for Dockery, the use of life would be having a son and having a wife, getting married. Whether you use it, you marry, have son or not, it will pass. For example, Dockery got married, had son, life passed. I didn't marry, don't have a son, still life passed. In both the cases, it will pass and leaves what something hidden from us choose. What are we left with of this life? Something that even we didn't choose. Shakespeare would say that stars in secret influence comment. Something who is outside our reach influences the life. What are we left with? Larkin didn't believe in God or in destiny, but he is hinting at God and destiny here. He chooses for us what he wishes. And what is that? And age, and then the only end of age. So what are we left with? Age means old age, and later the death. That was the poem Dockery and Son. We dealt with this poem in detail, explained all the stanzas. It would be difficult for the first time readers because of the shift that takes place almost in every stanza, and that ignoring pessimistic, sarcastic, post-modernist attitude of the speaker does make poem more difficult to understand. There are a lot of breaks in this poem which make it more difficult. By breaks I mean the shift. When there is a shift in the subject matter of the poem, there comes the break. So the flow is not there in this poem. It changes almost after every stanza. So you have to be very smart to get what Philip Larkin is telling you. But to sum up this poem in brief, this is a postmodernist poem versus modernist poem. There the Dean and the Dockery are representing the tradition, the convention, and speaker is representing the postmodernity, are not adhering to the conventions. He is not conventional. He also talks about life, how life goes on. Once we pass a particular stage in our life, it is very difficult for us to come back. after many, digressions in the poem, he digresses slightly in the last stanza also, where he talks in brief about life, and he says that life is nothing but a boring game which ends with fear, and there is nothing in control of human beings when it comes to life. It is controlled by someone who is, out of our control and is in secret, and from there, he chooses for us whatever he wishes. And what does he choose? He chooses for us old age, weakness, and fear, and eventually death. It was a very long lecture, and took it all on me. That is all we have at your academy. You can visit the page at your academy homepage and browse through videos. There are quite a large amount of videos that you will find here. You can even join your academy to get access to lectures in Hindi and Urdu if you want to watch them. Being a member of your academy, you will get other privileges also. To know more about that, you can click on this video and check about the privileges that a member of your academy will get. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to share, like, comment, and subscribe on this video and on other videos at your academy. Thank you for watching, and keep watching your academy.